Shukran. Shri Arun Jaitley, Finance Minister of the Modi Sarkar government, has presented the today budget for 14-15. This is the first budget of BJP government, and the budget focuses on the growth of economy. He has taken various measures which will fuel the growth in times to come. There are a lot of measures which have been taken to reform the administration. First and foremost is Commission on Expenditure Management. Today the government spends the money without realizing what it delivers. But now with this commission coming into force, the government is likely to enforce that the deliverables are delivered on the expenditure incurred by the government. There are similar measures taken by him, and on the infrastructure projects, he has gone for linking of the rivers for the Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana, etc. All these measures are likely to fuel the growth in the economy. As regards indirect taxation and taxation policies, it is very clearly stated that his government doesn't intend to have any retrospective amendment in the law unless it is absolutely essential. As we are aware that in the past, so many retrospective amendments have been carried out to nullify the impact of various Supreme Court judgments, and which has created very bad reputation for the country. As regards GST, he has very clearly stated that enough discussion has taken place, and in 14-15 he proposes to bring the draft act and the rules which will lay down the roadmap for GST. It is hoped that with this, the constitutional amendment which has been pending for a long time will be brought to the parliament, and this will be passed either in this session or maybe in the winter session, because thereafter only the rules can, the draft legislation and the rules can be brought into picture. However, in order to broad-base the service tax base, he has withdrawn certain exemption from payment of service tax. First and foremost is the clinical trial. There are a lot of, in India has progressed well in testing of drugs by various, which are newly developed by various pharmaceutical companies. These drugs are tested in India by many companies, especially located in Hyderabad, Mumbai and Indore. Up till now, the exemption from payment of service tax was available to such clinical trials, but that exemption stands withdrawn with effect from 11 July 2014, that is today. Second significant change in the amendment is the relating to educational institution. The educational institutions were provided exemption from payment of service tax on various input services received by them. There have been a lot of dispute with regard to the interpretation of the definition of auxiliary educational services, and CBSE also, to clarify the matter, has issued the circular, but that circular was very confusing, and that has created a lot of dispute between the service provider and the service recipient. Education institutions were always feeling that all input services received by them are exempt from payment of service tax, whereas the service provider was always feeling that such services are not exempt. And this has created tussle between the two. Now the serial number 9 of the notification very clearly spells out what are the services which are exempt when provided to education institution will be exempt from payment of service tax. However, one very significant change in this is that renting of human property provided to educational institution will now be not exempt from payment of service tax. This is more particularly true as many pre-primary schools have come up in today's, and they have been taking the premises on rent from various builders or various schools and running the nursery, pre-primary schools. These premises taken on rent by such school were exempt from payment of service tax. However, with immediate effect, that the rental services provided to education institution will now be liable for payment of service tax. Similarly, the other radio taxis. The radio taxis have become very popular in most of the metro cities. Taxis like Meru, Mega Cab, etc. were not liable for payment of service tax, as the services were specified in negative list. But now with the amendment proposed in the notification in the negative list, these services also will be liable for payment of service tax from the date to be notified. There are various other significant changes. One of the significant change which is made in the statute is Section 35 of the Central Excise Act, which has been made applicable to service tax. Up till now, whenever the show cause notices are issued and confirmed by the adjudicating authority, the company had the option to apply to appellate authority along with the application for stay and waiver of pre-deposit. The stay may be granted either conditional or unconditional stay. In case unconditional stay is granted, the company was not liable for payment of service tax for hearing of the appeal. The pre-deposit was not required to be made by the applicant as the stay was granted. But now it has been made mandatory that every company will be required to make the pre-deposit of 7.5% of the tax demand, subject to maximum of 10 crore rupees of the tax demand. So therefore, the Section 35F, which will come into effect from the date the bill becomes the act, has been modified significantly, and every company will have to make pre-deposit. We are all aware that many frivolous demands are being raised by the department, left, right and center. These demands do not stand to legal scrutiny, and most of the demands get quashed at the C-stat level. If one looks at the demand being set aside at C-stat level, it will amount to around 90% of the show cause notices are being set aside. Therefore, insisting upon the pre-deposit without hearing will definitely be not a beneficial measure for a trade, and trade will definitely oppose such a move on this account. In all, one can say that he has taken a lot of measures to rationalize the tax structures and also see that the growth of the economy, and therefore the many exemptions withdrawn are for the broad base of the tax base. Thank you very much.